PEMF isn't meant to diagnose, treat, or cure anything, and these statements haven't been reviewed by the FDA. Always check with your doctor before trying it, especially if you're pregnant or have implanted medical devices. This is for information only, so please make your own informed decisions. This is Feel the P.E.M.F, the podcast about pulsed electromagnetic field energy. I am Andrew, sharing 20 years of experience, stories, and insights to help you discover the power of PEMF. Welcome everybody to the Feel the P.E.M.F podcast. Today I have Michelle Mostert with me. Michelle Mostert has been in the PEMF industry over 17 years, and I have been lucky enough to work with her all over the country at different integrative expos, and I think we may have done a horse show. I think we did one maybe. No, we didn't. Okay. She's a great gal. I learn a lot from her. I send her a lot of people that have like a lot of equine questions and even dogs. She works on a lot of dogs too with the PEMF. And she just loves PEMF. She dives into it. She gets passionate about it, and that's what I really like about Michelle. She's one of those people who just wants things done the right way, and that's what when I have a question, I'll call her. Well, why do we need to do it this way? How come all these horse people I talk to are doing things this way, and you say to do them this way, and so Michelle's one of those people that I kind of look up to as far as the equine world, because I'm more of a human side of it. We set up in the medical shows for humans, and I'm really glad I have someone on my team like Michelle that really does go after the equine industry. Welcome to the show. Michelle, can you introduce yourself and tell the world what you are up to and what you're doing these days?
Oh, absolutely. And thank you, Andrew, for inviting me. And I really appreciate the intro. And I feel the same about you. I mean, you're just a wealth of information, especially on the human side. And I've learned a lot from you, and I think that we complement each other. And I'm excited that we have known each other that many years, and we have, and worked together. And I really, you know, glad that we're talking right now and get to share some of our knowledge with other folks out there.
Where you at today? Where are you calling us from?
Well, I'm living in the Austin area, Austin, Texas area. I'm originally from the Midwest, close to Chicago, and I moved to Texas in 2014, and I love it here. I have a practice where I work on mostly humans, but quite a few dogs, some horses, and cats. And a couple years ago, I worked on a baby kangaroo.
Oh,
And
I remember that. Yeah.
oh gosh, what a love bug that little guy was. And the PEMF did save his life, as far as I'm concerned, and the owners believe the same thing. So he had a twisted gut, had to have surgery, which the doctor said he had a 1% chance of surviving. And then they said, well, he still needs to poop. He hadn't pooped in almost a week. So I worked on him. And a few hours later, I got a text message that he pooped. So it was pretty cool. So yeah, he's a cool.
That's amazing. It's
It's
funny because I've had those stories too where people put it on their tummy and they're like, I haven't gone to the bathroom in days and I just went 3 times. So yes, so
oh
that's
yeah, plenty of humans, same thing. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Well, and now you did you start as like a massage therapist and then you found PEMF?
Yes, I started over 34 years ago in reflexology. Then within a year was going to massage school and learning energy work. And then slightly over 17 years ago, I got introduced to PEMF. And I mean, I it just changed my life. It actually saved my massage career because I had gotten really bad arthritis in all the joints of my fingers. And it was so painful to do massage or many activities actually that I thought I was going to have to quit. And I didn't want to do anything else. I love what I do. And I also had tennis elbow for over 2 years where I could barely squeeze water out of a sponge, and the PEMF was phenomenal for that as well. Uh, and I had 2 torn ligaments in my my left knee, where my knee, even though I had surgery, they didn't reattach the ligaments. They just lasered the frayed ends. If I walked up and down hills or I did more than a 5 pound ankle weight and 10 reps of any leg exercise, my knee would still ache and swell. And with the PEMF, I hike now. I go to the gym and do 160 pound leg press machine, 80 pound single leg squat machines, all kinds of leg stuff. And my knee doesn't swell or ache anymore. But I still have to do the PEMF a couple, 3 times a week.
Yeah.
But it works. I mean, it's
It's amazing how energy finds us, right? You're in your career, you're massaging, you're doing well, hands start to hurt, your ligaments are, and then all of a sudden you run into this technology. It was the same with me. I had a spot behind my scapula that wouldn't calm down. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't concentrate. It was 24 hours a day of this weird pain behind my scapula, and nothing worked. And I get a session at a Vegas show for 9 minutes each day, and then it's gone. And then a month later, I call. I say, "Hey, this thing worked. How do I get involved?" And then a month later, I have a machine. How did you end up getting your machine?
Well, a friend of mine was at a horse show and she and I had gotten together and she handed me a brochure and she said, "Hey, this guy's selling these machines at this horse show. I think you should look into it." And I'd never heard of it. And I was like, okay. So I called him up and it turned out he had sold a machine to a girlfriend of mine that does equine massage therapy up north of Chicago. And so I called her up and she said, "Michelle, you have to get one of these." And so I met her at the horse show. I worked on 5 horses. I worked on myself, and I was sold. I knew I had to have one. There was no doubt in my mind. I mean, it was
Yeah. You have to. Once you experience it, you feel that energy go through and hit the areas that bother you. It's like magic.
right.
You're like, Wait a minute," and it turned my life upside down. I tell you that. I never thought I'd, 20 years later be having a podcast about PEMF. I was just a guy that sold mattresses. Let's get started with some questions, and we'll go from there. I think maybe I'll go first. Is that okay?
Yes, sounds good.
Uh, all right. The one question I wanted to ask you first was, I wanted to see how PEMF helped with your bones. I think you have a story about that. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. That was one of the main reasons I decided to buy the machine is because I have had osteoporosis. I was diagnosed with it, runs in my family, and it can be very debilitating. One of my relatives actually ended up having to stay in bed because every time she moved, she would have these bone fractures. So I looked it up and I found 13 case studies on PubMed.gov that showed how it increased bone mass, and I started using it. And I did a month after I had my machine, I did a bone density test. And then 3 months later, I did another one. I increased my bone mass within 8 months, 20% in my back and 4% in my hips. So my spine, 20%, my hips, 4%. I was osteopenia in the hips, still osteopenia. But the end of 8 months, I was 20% increase in bone mass. Now, there was that 1 month that I didn't test before. So I thought if I did that much increase, then, how much did
Well,
I really increase it if I had done the test in the very beginning?
well, that's okay, because I mean the bone density. I mean, if you take the modern medications for bone density, I think they're only going to get you about maybe 1% increase, maybe 1 to 3% a year, is
Mhm.
is kind of what those the pharmaceuticals say that their medications can do. So for you to get that type of percent increase in that short of time is great. Well, how did you feel though?
Well, I never felt that my bones hurt or nothing like that. I didn't have any, symptoms, let's put it that way. Uh, Also know that I had tried an osteoporosis drug the year before, and I had horrific side effects, including acid reflux.
Uh,
And all of my symptoms went away except the acid reflux. It was much milder. But I mean, it hurt to breathe. It hurt to drink water. It was so, and it was a nasal osteoporosis drug. It wasn't a pill. And I got sores in my nose, and I just said I'd rather have bone loss than to deal with this. The other thing about these drugs is it will harden the outer shell of your bone, but not the center of the bone, and so you can still get fractures.
Ah.
Kind of like not what they say it is. So, uh, but
Yeah, it's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on things, right?
and the
Yeah.
other thing with the acid reflux, I couldn't take any of the drugs for that either. And so I was, not lying down for 3 hours before I went to bed and things like that, and couldn't eat garlic and onions and spicy foods and caffeine. All of that would aggravate it, and I'd be in pain for, like, maybe a couple weeks. Well, when I purchased my PEMF machine, I could get rid of the acid reflux in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And now I do lemon juice. I do eat garlic and onions. I don't do it every day, but I don't have any GERD.
Yeah, you eat pretty healthy. Every time we go to a conference, you eat very healthy, and then,
Mhm.
I've had, I have a pretty strong stomach, but, I have some family members that do deal with acid reflux and heartburn and all that stuff, and I just say, "Put the machine on it," and, it calms it down and goes away in, just a matter of minutes, which is nice. You're listening to the Feel the P.E.M.F podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll be right back after this.
PEMF isn't meant to diagnose, treat, or cure anything, and these statements haven't been reviewed by the FDA. Always check with your doctor before trying it, especially if you're pregnant or have implanted medical devices. This is for information only, so please make your own informed decisions.
So, how do the horses respond? Like, because horses get like fractures and
Mhm.
injuries in their bones and things like that. What kind of like mending do you see in the horses?
Well, I haven't worked on any horses with broken bones. I have with dogs.
Okay.
Speed healing process. Horses usually, if they have a fracture or broken bone, depending where it's at, they have to put them down. So it's more with horses like torn ligaments, tendon damage.
They get inflamed. They get, they're working, and they're holding up a lot of weight. They're big animals. So
Yeah, so I worked on a pony that had laminitis, and that's the state that is an inflammation in the hoof. The navicular bone starts to drop, and it can turn into founder. And this pony was prone to it. Pony was about 22, 23 years old, stuck in a stall since I saw it in January. It had been stuck in a stall, pain meds twice a day for since the previous summer, and the pony was prone to it. So I went out there 6 times. I went every 3 days. I worked on this pony. By the 6th visit, it was weaned off all pain medicine, and they were turning the pony back out with the, other horses.
that's great.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, we get those stories all the time, just, I people, "Oh, my son had a cast and we went in for a checkup and the doctor said it was healed and he can come off that day." It wasn't
Mm,
expected to come off for 2 or 3 more weeks, so, it just bone healing is, one of the great things with PEMF, it really does, you know, at the cellular level, get that bone to, strengthen up again. So,
eh, Another one is navicular. They say that's not curable, but I've worked on a couple horses that had it, and that it didn't come back. It just the horse was still good with that, and so their range of motion, they recover faster from whatever activity you have to do. It helps prevent injury because they're more relaxed in their muscles and stuff when they're performing, and it's a great preventative, not just for horses, but humans as well. Everyone would benefit from doing PEMF as a preventative.
well, speaking of horses, what are some things that you tell horse owners, that, why do they need this in their barn? Why do they need PEMF? How is it gonna help them the most? Whether they have, one or two horses, or they have a whole stable full?
Well, that's a good question. I tell people that your horse is going to have more quality of life. Okay, everybody wants more quality of life. Either they want their animals to have better quality of life. You want to have better quality of life. The horse is going to be have less pain if they have pain, or tendency would get it from, their whatever it is you're having them do to perform, or they do stupid stuff out in the pasture and they're going to heal faster from that. Like I've worked on a horse that got poked by a rake. It went right into the tendon of his pastern, and that's the joint above the hook on the lower leg. And the vet at the Purdue University said that this horse is going to be just a lawn ornament. And I was working on this horse. I can't remember how many times because it's been a while, but probably 10 times. And they went back. I went with them to Purdue University, and they did MRI, or casket actually, and they lifted up the horse's leg, and the vet was, you could see the camera, he was rotating the hook, and he could tell that the tendon, he said, "Oh my gosh," he said, "that tendon is just sliding in and out of the sheath. There's a sheath that that it runs through, and there was no restrictions, no scar tissue, nothing." And
Wow.
when and well, he can start going more than a walk, because they were supposed to only hand walk this horse, and they said, "Well, we've already been lunging it at trot, canter." So, anyway, yeah.
So they might save
Right.
some vet bills, right? Some of their
Yeah,
vet bills might go down.
absolutely. Vet bills will go down. Absolutely. Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's I
They could still ride the horse again.
I really like horses. I am just a little intimidated by their size though. So, when I go and stand next to a horse, I try to just calm myself as much as I can before I put this energy through it. The last thing I want to do is get kicked. But
Right.
um, it's one of those things where you just have to, you got to calm yourself, and you got to, you know, let the horse know that
Mhm.
you're gonna help that horse, and that's what I tell the horse. Hey, I'm here to help you, bud. So, and as soon as I feel, comfortable, then they feel comfortable. I think they can sense if you're not comfortable with horses, they know, I
Right.
think.
I don't recommend people working on horses with PEMF, or doing any modality if they aren't a horse person and know how to see the signs of a horse that's like not going to be very happy, or upset, or you have to look at their ears, you look at their mouth, you look at their tail. You just can see by their actions that you better be careful because they will pick.
Yeah, yeah, and the horses that I've worked on, their ears kind of go crazy, their tongue, they start to like lick, and then they lean into you.
Yes.
Oh, it feels so good. And so, that's okay, but
Right.
I like that, but I like I said, I'm not a horse person, but I would much rather get a horse person on my team like you.
Right.
It's just
Well,
like go to
if if the horse moves away from it, then you have the devices turned up too high, or that you need to back it up and lessen the
Yeah.
intensity.
I had a horse, we had been working on one side for about 10 minutes, and we were just going through it, we're talking, and all of a sudden he just stomps his foot. And I was like, I think he's done. you know, and that yeah, he was like, I'm done with this. I think he got it, and he liked
Yeah.
it, and then he was like, okay, that's enough.
Right.
So, it's they can't tell us what they're feeling, but you definitely have to be a person that can sense their energy, and you have to respect it, because
Mhm.
I've had some people that I know get kicked by a horse, and it
Mhm.
can end their career. It can, it's not a it's people get in the hospital for weeks after that or worse. So, uh,
Well, one thing one thing I want to add too is it's a great diagnostic tool because, as you said, horses can't tell you what's wrong. Even other animals, they can't say, "Oh, it hurts over here," and all you know is they're limping on that one leg. And where's it coming from? Was it coming from the hip? Is it coming from the hock? Where is it coming from? And so when you're moving the attachment along the body, the muscles will twitch stronger, as you know, when there's more inflammation in that area. And there was one horse in particular that they were thinking was coming from the hock, and which is a joint above the knee part of the horse.
Mhm.
And so I took the attachment thinking, okay, I'm really cautious moving it toward that area. And it really didn't react. I'm like, huh. I got up to the hip bone and there it was. It was real strong right there. I said, there's your answer. That's where it's coming from. And I know I've heard that there are vets that will ask PEMF therapists to come and use the machine on a horse that can help diagnose where the inflammation is.
A and, I've heard that too, where there's people out there that before they go and buy a horse, they will use PEMF around the horse to see if there's any injuries, because the horse will react where it hurts, you know? So, yeah, I've heard that several times. You know where else that works too is athletes, human athletes, because a lot of human athletes don't want to tell you where it hurts because they want to play this weekend or Friday night or Sunday. And you put the machine on that hip and all of a sudden like, whoa, turn it down. You know that they're hurting. So it is a good kind of a diagnostic.
And I'll tell that to my clients, and I say, as I move it around, I say, well, where do you feel it? And then they'll tell me, and I say, oh yeah, that's where it hurts, and they said, well, how does it know to go there? I said, well, it's going everywhere within that loop, but you're feeling more intensely where you have more inflammation. So it doesn't mean you're not getting anywhere else. So it's just kind of cool like that. And then there's areas like, gee, I didn't know it was sore there. It's really sensitive there, but I'm having my problem really over here. I said, well, could be because you're compensating for that sore area and you're putting more stress on the side that's not hurting. So that's just might be, you know.
That's why I like our equipment too, is because we have large single loops, we got double loops, we got ropes, we got giant loops. We have all these different loops. And sometimes I'll get somebody that's like, I got this spot, and I would put the single loop on it, and they're like, no, I don't feel it. And then I put the double loop on it, and they're like, no, it's not hitting that spot. I don't know, but there's something there. And I remember I got the rope and I wrapped his waist. I said, "Well, let's try this loop. I don't know." And I wrapped his waist to probably maybe about 6 times, plugged it back into the machine, and I turned it on, and he was like, "Oh, there it is." Like, he felt it go right to the spot. So it was kind of deep in there. So we needed to use a loop that would create the field inside of his body for him to feel it. So you can definitely use different attachments on the body to find the sweet spot. And I think a lot of another PMF therapy stuff is just a mat, or it's just like this like weird ring, or and so with our equipment, I like it because we can change things out and find the sweet spot in what these people are looking for.
Right, and I also like switching up and not always using the same attachment because
Yes.
you better, faster results. The body doesn't get used to the same old. And so I switch up. I may use the mats. I have an 18-inch double loop, step inside that closed and move that up and down the body, similar to like what you explained if you took a rope and just wrapped it around the torso. Uh, it's just getting it at different angles and not, just hitting it in the one spot. I have people that will buy a machine from me and all they use is the mat. And they're missing the boat. They need to
Yes.
find it with the smaller loops so that you can target those areas and they'll get better results.
Yes. All these attachments that we make are there as a good tool to help people get the energy where it needs to go.
Mhm.
So there's some horse owners out there that use PEMF I've seen on YouTube that are just like, whoa, like that intensity is super high on that horse. I'm like, Wow, like look at like sometimes like a lot of the racehorse stuff and things like that. Like what is some advice you would give to horse owners that get a PEMF that you're just like, you know what, don't do this, or you know what, it's best to do this. What's some advice to horse people um on PEMF in general?
Well, number one, animals really are very sensitive and they don't need a high intensity. They don't like it. And that doesn't whether it's a horse, a dog, cat, doesn't matter. You treat them like they're a baby or a very small child. The smaller the human, the less intensity you would use on them and not as long a session. So with the horses, you can tell they're uncomfortable. They're almost like cringing and it's you see it in their faces. And so I like to have it to where I barely see any muscles twitching, just barely. And the other thing that is a pet peeve of mine is when people will attach let's say the double loop around the leg and then take Velcro and or a twist tie and close it. So now if the horse decides to spook, your machine is going with them. 'Cause it's attached to the leg, all right? Or I've seen them take, like, the 20 is it the 21 inch? The 22 it's not the 18 inch, it's the next larger size, loop, double loop, and they'll put it over their head, around their neck, so it's hanging
Oh my goodness.
like a necklace.
Yeah.
Right. You're cruising for a bruising, people. That horse spooks. I don't care how calm that horse is all the time. It just
Yeah.
takes that one instance. And then if you got one of our $20,000 machine, there it is going down the aisleway,
Being
banging
dragged down the arena or outside.
wherever it is you're outside, whatever it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. Or I've seen them take attachment and put it under the halter. Yeah, and just stupid stuff, common sense people. I don't know
Yeah.
if they're worse people or what, but come on,
Yeah.
But
It,
yeah,
and that
flight animals. They're flight animals and they could take off and can spook. Now I had one gentleman who would just have the horse inside of a stall. They had put cross ties on them, so they're standing there, and then he puts the loop over their back and then walks away unattended. The horse is unattended.
yeah.
No, that's not smart.
Yeah, it's just you got to have some common sense and you have to have some nurturing for these animals and I think they'll get better, if you're standing there and you're with them and they feel better and the energy goes through, they will feel better. It's not like filling up the car with gas. You run in the store and, buy a soda, you have to, you got to really take care of these animals and PMF is a great way to do it and we want people to be safe and we don't want people to get hurt and yeah, that's good advice, because I don't see that side of it. I'm not in the barns, I send them and these people are working on their horses and doing stuff but I don't get to see it, so that's why I like to ask you because I really want people to be safe with these machines and make sure they're taking care of their horses properly.
Right, right, absolutely.
I'll let you ask me a question now. What question do you have for me?
You're listening to the Feel the P.E.M.F podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll be right back after this. PEMF isn't meant to diagnose, treat, or cure anything, and these statements haven't been reviewed by the FDA. Always check with your doctor before trying it, especially if you're pregnant or have implanted medical devices. This is for information only, so please make your own informed decisions.
That I can answer for you.
What is the difference between therapeutic PMFs versus harmful EMFs?
Therapeutic PMF and harmful EMFs?
Correct.
Okay. So PMF, EMF kind of rhymes, but it's completely different. So imagine a ring or one of our attachments with energy being created, magnetic poles, north and south being created, and then flopping back and forth. And this energy goes into your body, and it's all magnetic field. energy smaller than electrons, and it's able to influence the smallest levels of function in our body. And of course, you've got the inflammation, you've got the pain, you've got all the stuff that it can help with. PEMF is they're pulsed electromagnetic fields going through your body. When you plug something into the wall, you're plugging into a 60 hertz outlet in USA and Mexico and Japan. Other parts of the world are 50 hertz, but for the most part, anything you plug into a 60 hertz power grid is going to send electricity into that device, and then it's coming in waves. Imagine a sine wave going up and down and up and down, and the top wave is your energy that's going to run the refrigerator, the coffee pot, the charge your cell phones, run the fan, run the air cleaner, run the air conditioning, all that positive things, that the benefits we get from electricity. And then the bottom wave is the smog. Okay. That's the dirty electricity that is shaking at 60 hertz as it emits out from that unit. So, and that's the EMF smog, or the electronic pollution, they call it, right? And it's around our house everywhere. So we've got refrigerators plugged in, we leave the coffee pot plugged in, our computers, um, any lamps, anything in our house that's plugged into the 60 hertz, you have EMF smog. And why is it pollution? Because that 60 hertz that I mentioned, our cells can vibrate safely between 1 and 50 pulses per second. It's within the realm of nature, 1 in 50 pulses per second. Okay. Now, if you take electricity that runs at 60 hertz, it shakes our cells too much. Our cells shake, and then it can cause damage. A good example of this is if you are on a highway and you're running parallel with the electric power lines going across the poles, and then the wires will go through a tree, and all of a sudden you see the leaves that are closest to the wire are all brown, and then on the other side of the tree the leaves are green. Okay, it's damaging those leaves. Those leaves are it's out of the realm even for that tree's leaves, and the tree's leaves will start to die. So we are surrounded by this dirty energy, and a lot of people use EMF blockers. There's some people have them where they plug them into certain outlets of the house. Some people put these blockers on their house and in certain rooms. Some people wear necklaces and wristbands and belts and things like that to protect. Some people would have sheets and things like that to help protect from this EMF smog. And EMF is gonna, as long as we have a 60 hertz power grid, it's gonna be there. Now, when you go to Europe, it's a 50 hertz power grid. So it doesn't transmit electricity as efficient. And if you look at any lamps or light fixtures in Europe, you can actually see a little bit of twitching or flickering in the light. And why can we see that? Because it's in our realm. It's within the 1 to 50 hertz realm, and our eyeballs can process that and pick up the flickering of the light. In USA, the lights, they vibrate a much faster frequency out of our realm, and we don't see flickering lights here because it's just more efficient for the power company, and we don't have flickering lights. So that's kind of the difference between the two things. Now, people get them confused because they think that if they sit with our machine and they put a loop around their neck and they turn it on, they're going to get EMF smog put into their body. Well, it's not exactly true. Because what only comes out of the ring is magnetic field going into your body. So there's no that bottom wave of dirty electricity isn't in the magnetic field. Now, the machine that's plugged in next to you is in a 60 hertz outlet. It is polluting some stuff next to you, but so is your cell phone and your watch and the air cleaner that cleans the air in your room for you to breathe better. So uh, we can't get away from it because we have a 60 hertz grid. So what I tell people is that if you think of the planet is basically a giant magnetic field, and it protects us from the harmful rays of the sun or all the little particles coming from the sun that would scorch our planet if the magnetic field wasn't there. Okay. So if I sit down and I put a ring around my body and I spin electricity and create a magnetic field around my body, guess what? I'm being protected from EMFs around me. All that stuff, the bad stuff, during my session, I'm protected from that stuff. So if I'm sitting next to my machine and I have a ring around my neck, that smog's not gonna hit my body. It's because I'm in a magnetic field. I created this protection around me. So that's kind of my aspect of how energy works, because it's worth the risk to sit next to a PEMF generator inside of the loop that PEMF generator is, running or creating magnetic field with, because you got good energy coming in that our cells need. It's like, you know, we take a risk, you know, taking a shower in hot water, right? If it's too hot, it's gonna burn us. If it's too cold, we're not gonna do it. But we still got to get in the shower and wash ourselves, right? It's just how it is. Like, so magnetic field is more beneficial to put into our body in a big dose like this, than say, well, I'm afraid of EMFs, so I'm not gonna use it. But everything has EMF in it. And the worst polluters are Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cell phone, that watch you're wearing, those ear pods in your ear. All that stuff you have on is worse. I can't even wear a watch anymore. My energy is a little too sensitive, and and if I wear a regular watch, the battery dies in a week. I don't know why. It always does. And then cell phone, I can't have it on me. It's always sitting next to me. I don't put it in my pocket. It hurts. If I set it on my tummy in bed, it hurt. And it hurts because it's gigahertz of frequency coming at your body. 5G is the same technology that when you walk through the airport screener and you put your hands up and it goes, the energy of the scanner at the airport scans through your body for like 2.2 seconds. Very fast, right? And people freak out about it. Oh my gosh, I'm not going in that thing. That's gonna cause cancer. It's gonna do this, all this stuff, right? And they would wait and they get patted down. But that cell phone in your pocket is on the entire time, and it's the same energy coming out of those scanners. And so, it's one of those things. Keep your electronics away from you if you can. Um, you know, Try turning off the Wi-Fi at night if you have trouble sleeping. I know we need our convenience. We need to keep up with technology. We need to keep up with our economy and banking and all the things. Everything's going to require some sort of electronics around us. That's why you have to get out and you have to go to the beach. You have to go spend some time on the ranch. You have to go swimming. You have to go take that hike to that waterfall. You have to go and get out into nature and get your dose of the magnetic field. Now, if you have one of our machines and you get a therapy mat or one of the rings and you lie down for 10, 15 minutes and you just charge your body up, it's way more powerful than what the earth is giving you. Way more powerful. It's a huge dose of magnetic field. And now in our digital machines, we're embedding the 7.83 hertz Earth's frequency right into it. So it's a great machine for that. So I hope I answered your question. That was a long answer, and I apologize it was so long, but I felt like when I get that question, I have to like explain it because it's real tough to imagine all that stuff. But I hope that answers your question.
It did. It was perfect. I also have clients that will ask me, well, what's causing that clicking sound when it pulses? Every time it pulses, it makes a clicking sound.
Well, that's a good question. When our machines work, the energy is colliding on sound waves. It's making some sound waves that we can't hear flop. And when they flop around and hit each other, it makes a ticking sound. That's what we're hearing, the collision of sound waves that we don't normally hear. And and I'll even get like some like elderly, they'll be on the machine and they're like, I can't hear any ticking, and it because they're at an age where it's out of their realm. But it's definitely not like an arc, some of the, oh my gosh, is it arcing? Is it like a spark? Is it electricity? Is it going to shock me? Or is it, no, not at all. It's not, and it's not a sound machine that's sending sounds out. Some people think our stuff is sound based. It's not. It's magnetic field, but the flopping of the pole causes some sound waves that we just can't hear collide, and what we're hearing is that collision. So pretty cool. I thought that was the best explanation I ever got for it.
Yeah, because I remember back years ago, I was told it was from the copper, because there's lots of rings of copper wire in these loops that when they start moving and touching each other, that's what's causing the sound. So
Yeah, I think it's a little more than that, because if it was arcing in there, these loops would wear down pretty quick.
mm. Now your explanation makes more sense.
Yeah, that good question. I do get that question quite a bit. Um, I'm checking to see if I have another question for you.
You're listening to the Feel the P.E.M.F podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll be right back after this. PEMF isn't meant to diagnose, treat, or cure anything, and these statements haven't been reviewed by the FDA. Always check with your doctor before trying it, especially if you're pregnant or have implanted medical devices. This is for information only, so please make your own informed decisions.
What do you say to a testimonial or success story that used high or low intensity, and just kind of what happened with these people or animals?
All right. Well, this animals for sure, very low intensity. Okay. But I'm going to give you an example of people people with autoimmune diseases. You need to be very careful that you don't work on them too long and that you don't have the intensity very high because they don't detox well. And so they can end up having really severe Herxheimer reaction. In other words, a detoxing where they can have a headache. They can be really achy or sore, cold or flu-like symptoms. It's very uncomfortable for them. And so
Yeah.
when I always ask people before I work on them if they have an autoimmune disease, and I have to be super careful with them.
Yes.
So uh, I'll give you an example of a gentleman with Lyme disease. And I ended up just having him sit on the loop for 3 minutes, and I had him lay on the mat for 3 minutes. I didn't
Okay.
even do it to that. I did 6 minutes, low intensity. I mean, where he barely felt it. And when I got done, he said that 90% of his pain and all his muscles and joints were gone.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing. And I would tell people, pain is electricity.
Hmm.
It's plus and minus charges going up the nerve path. They hit your pain center and tell you you're in pain. And so when you lie on these mats, and it depolarizes a whole bunch of pain signals in your entire body, that and your body's been confused on for years, you get fast results. Yeah. 3 minutes and 3 minutes, and he sits up, he's not in any pain. That's
No,
amazing.
I
you
know.
know
So another tidbit for people, and I learned this the hard way. This is my beginning years. I worked on a woman that had diabetes. I don't know if she was the first patient I had that had diabetes. I don't recall. And so when I start turning the intensity up on people, I'll tell them, okay, tell me when you start to feel it. And I'm turning this thing up. And I said, I'm turning it up slowly. And I said, you feel it yet? No. And I keep turning it up. And I'm thinking, geez, she should have felt it by now. And then she finally felt it. And I think I worked on her legs too, or she might have had some neuropathy. Well, I called the next day to see how she was doing because I always like to do that after a first visit. She was in so much pain afterwards because people with diabetes have nerve damage. They don't feel things like we do.
Yeah.
They can't. They have neuropathy. You can't touch. They don't. Their feet don't feel the ground.
Yes.
And so I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what it is. It was she was feeling she couldn't feel it even though it was strong enough much sooner than where I stopped the machine. So it was a very valuable lesson. And she did not come back, which I don't blame her. But that was a huge learning curve for me.
That reminds me of a session I did, and the gal had MS, and she could not feel the carpet with her feet when she walk on the carpet. Everything was numb. I was like a family gathering of some sort, and she stood up, and I was like, are you okay? And there's just tears running down her face, and I was like, oh my gosh, would you need something? Are you okay? What's happened? Like, I was concerned, like, why is she crying? And she looks it up, and she looks up, she's like, I could feel the carpet.
Yeah.
So, we get that, very quick things can happen. But I also wanted to touch on the Herxheimer you mentioned. The Herxheimer, I always say, how do you spell Herxheimer? It's Hangover. Okay. Hangover. If you've been there, it's terrible, it doesn't feel well, and, people who are toxic or have autoimmune issues, Lyme's issues, lupus, all these different things, their cells are at a charge where they don't have enough energy to push out toxins. They don't have their cells, so it just hangs on to them. It hangs on to, and all the membranes and all the cells are just sitting there dirty. And then they show up to one of us, and we're like, well, let's change the charge back to -70, -90 millivolts. And boom, all of a sudden these toxins are like, hey, I have energy to get out, and they jump out of the cell and the cell wall, and it's got to go somewhere. It's going to come out the digestive tract. If they're not hydrated, it's going to come out their skin, their tongue. They're going to get a headache. They're going to be maybe a little nauseous. Okay. So it's not that they don't um, handle PEMF well. It's that the PEMF is really good at getting toxins out. Okay. So that's where if you come across people like I ask people too, if have you ever had chemotherapy, if you have autoimmune stuff, did you ever work somewhere that was really toxic, if you hydrate really well before a session, you're good, you're hydrated, minerals, okay, drink a Gatorade if you need to, have electrolytes in your body. Um, Also, you want to make sure if you have ever taken like a binder, like, those are good to have to catch toxins. So if we're going to release a whole bunch of toxins, it's good to have a binder to catch them. Zeolite, is a good one. Activated charcoal. You have to be careful when you take your binders, because if you're on medications, it's going to want to bind to those too. But
Bentonite clay too.
yeah, yeah. And so, there's things that you can do to help. And I get doctors, especially at the integrative oncology centers, they'll call, hey, this person did chemo for 3 years, and then she did it again, for another year, and this and that. And they're really toxic, and they'll use some binders to help catch things on the way out. Just and so it's just you take your time, you do 6 minutes, 9 minutes, 10 minutes the first day, and then you're like, we'll see you on Wednesday, and let them detox a couple of days. Then you do it again. We'll see you Friday, let them detox. What we don't want is for you to detox everything on Monday, um, for the whole
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
I have a funny story about that. I have a doctor that got her machine on a Friday, right? Well, I had checked to like tracked it and it said it was gonna arrive Monday. And I was like, oh, well, she's not gonna get the machine till Monday. So I'll just, enjoy the weekend and I'll call her Monday when she gets her machine. And well, it came Friday, okay? And I didn't see any notifications that had showed up or whatever, and, she's super excited to get the machine. She gets the machine, takes it out, and she starts using it. Well, Friday, all day Saturday, I mean, just using like, I think she took it home and was, like, just charging up all day Saturday. Sunday, she had to call one of the other doctors in the practice to like, "Can you come and give me an IV because I feel terrible. I feel like I'm like a drinking." And they came and they gave her a saline IV, and that's what would happen if you were to feel that terrible. You'd go to the ER. They're gonna be like, "Oh well, let's get you some fluids." That's what's gonna happen. But um, she and I talked to her Monday and I'm like, "Hey, did you get the machine?" She's like, "Oh my gosh, I got it on Friday and I thought I was gonna die this weekend." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you did too much." And she's like, "I did way too much." I said, "Okay, well, you know how powerful these machines are." I tell her, this lady has every detox piece of equipment you could think of, and she has never had an experience like this. So I said, that's how powerful this is. When you can change the charge of the cell membrane uh, in minutes and your body goes to work, that's how powerful these are. So these are not little machines that you can just, you're not going to feel anything, you're not going to experience anything. You are going to notice something right away, even if you use it on low. So,
Right. Right.
yeah.
My
Well,
first time using my machine, or not my machine, the machine at that horse show when I worked on myself, I have an old injury of my right shoulder from swimming, torn rotator cuff, and so I was using it a lot and I was putting it all over my shoulder, and I'm like, "Oh, that feels so good." And I woke up like 2 in the morning with my whole shoulder and entire arm just aching. I mean, I'm like, "Oh," I was moaning. It was I
yeah.
just overdid it. I overdid it, but
And
it
and also too, I get people who are swimmers, I've and they detox a lot, and they're in chlorine all the time,
right.
and that does go into your body, and your body has to process it and get rid of it. So, I had one guy, he worked at a gas oil refinery, and he started using the machine and he smelled his skin and it smelled like gasoline. The guy had been retired for years, but the toxins were still in him trapped. And so when he used the machine, it started kicking that stuff out. So uh you just never know what you're going to see. When I work on people with high intensity or low intensity, you never know. People people will just tell you what's going on with them and you just kind of figure out like, wow, that's toxins coming out, or that was an old injury that was never really healed and got your range of motion back, or and and when it's painful like that, that just means that you probably just broke up a whole bunch of scar tissue.
Right.
And if you go to a physical therapy office and they're in there and they're yanking that shoulder around, you're going to come home pretty sore that day. So same thing, it's just energy working instead of, months of PT.
That's why I really emphasize drinking a lot of water. I mean, I
Yes.
really drive that home, and it's still people will not listen to me, and then they're sore, and they when I talk to them the next day, and I said, "Well, how much water did you drink?" "Well, not very much." I go, "Mm, okay." But
I
I
don't
want
like
people
water.
yeah, I want people to drink minimally 2 quarts of water a day. Not all at once, you just spread it out, but and coffee and tea and soda pop and alcohol, they don't count, those are diuretics, And if you drink those things, I say, "Oh, I had 3 cups of coffee this morning." No.
Yeah. You're
And I
really
just
dehydrated now.
Yeah, I said, "I have give them a 16-ounce bottle of water." I said, "We're not starting until you finish this water." And then I give them another one when I'm done. And then sometimes during the session, I can tell when I'm looking at their mouths start getting dry. And I'm like, I said, "Are you thirsty?" And they go, "Yeah," because the cells are really absorbing that water because they've been dehydrated themselves. And so the water is so super important. And I
Yeah.
tell people, you're not willing to drink the water, I won't work on you.
What are your plans for the near future with PEMF? What do you got going on? If somebody heard this conversation, how could you help that person with the little advice today that might be like looking up and say, hey, maybe this PEMF is right for me?
Well, they're welcome to visit my website if they want, and it has all my contact information there. And that is PEMF Austin, AUSTIN.com. They can call me, they can text me, email me, all that information's on there. And, if they're in the area and yeah,
Mm.
and I can do it, and I sell machines from other parts of the country and the world. I mean, I've sold 2 machines in Ireland, I sold a machine in Switzerland. So it's a very people from all over will contact me. They'll find my website and we get to talking and I can do things via Zoom or FaceTime. We have training videos that we give people, but I come with the machine, I tell people. I sell a machine and I'm always available. It doesn't matter. There's no time limit on it. I don't like, oh, after a year, you're on your own, or there's some people they sell you the machine and you'll never hear from them again. And that's the beauty of you and I, is that we will still help you after you buy the machine and answer
That's
the
right.
question.
I don't know how many times I get a question in the middle of a Saturday afternoon, like, "Hey, Andrew, I'm working with this patient and this, and what do you think?" And it takes me a minute to answer them. It's nothing, and I say, just keep me in your phone,
Mhm,
keep me close. If you have questions, we're here to help. We're going to show you how to use these machines properly and
mhm.
safely. That's what I hope for in this podcast is you to learn one more thing. And Michelle, you brought up a good question before we started about Gauss and measuring field and all that stuff. So we didn't get into it today, but I do want to let you know we're that's a big question. And I think we're gonna do a separate show on the measurement of Gauss and what's coming out of these machines, because you can spend $7,000-$10,000 on something that's putting out 10 Gauss. All right. Just to give you an idea, the machine that you can feel, the lowest power one is, anywhere from, 5 to 12,000 Gauss coming out of that thing. So realize that these machines are not just little machines that are
Right,
made for a few $100 and sold
right.
for thousands. These are high intensity PMF generators that are made in a regulated facility that are really have been helping people for over 20 years. And when people find us, that means that usually they're done with all that other stuff. They're
Right.
ready for some fast proven results, and that's
Mhm.
when they find Michelle's number and my number and all, my team of doctors out there that has our equipment. That's when they get the call. Well, it was really good talking with you today, Michelle. Thank you for spending the time today, and I always rooting for you and here to support you. And you let me know if you need anything. And thank you for your insight today. It was wonderful.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure as usual. I've always enjoyed talking to you, Andrew, and throwing, all our little experiences back and forth and ideas. And that's how we become better therapists and healers and spreading the word. Very good. So thank you.
And better friends, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's good to get on with your friends. That's good.
I agree. I
All
agree.
right. Well, you take care, Michelle. Have a great day.
You do the same.
Thanks for tuning in to the Feel the P.E.M.F podcast. I truly appreciate my guests for sharing their insights, and I hope you picked up something valuable today. When you're ready, explore PEMF technology for yourself. To learn more, visit feelthepemf.com.
PEMF isn't meant to diagnose, treat, or cure anything, and these statements haven't been reviewed by the FDA. Always check with your doctor before trying it, especially if you're pregnant or have implanted medical devices. This is for information only, so please make your own informed decisions.